Thank you, Shox. A huge congratulations to those guys. Well deserved. Want to jump into this game, though, because during Champion Select, we saw the Jinx picked up pretty early, and collectively, the entire desk let out a giant groan saying, what the hell are they doing? It didn't work out for them last game. Why are they going for it again this time around?
I think the interview from Niels really helped us understand why they picked it. So they realized that they needed a better AD carry for the Lulu. The Kalista can work, but it's not that effective compared to the Jinx. So they went with it, even though he had a couple of games of solo queue with it. Probably not that many in the practice. Similar to how they picked Vladimir in the group stages, even though they've never really played it before. I feel like they went with the same thing this time around. And, I mean, Niels just carried so hard. The damage he did was 35,000 by himself. His team's damage, all four, did 37,000. 2,000 shy of literally out-damaging his whole team.
Yeah, and you know, we said going into this game, get the Elise, get some winning lanes, put pressure on it. They're like, no, we don't care. Elise, you can run around, do whatever the heck you want. And Ivy, you can do whatever you want. We got like 2 support champions, an Ardent Sensor, and like we're just gonna go nuts apparently and win the game.
Like to me, I thought the Aurelia was hilarious because I was making like a joke before the game, like before the last week came in. I want to see Stake on Aurelia because that champion requires you to do things. Like I think in team fights he did well, but in the matchup against Lulu he needs to do better. He needs to itemize Sheen. He needs to play around the split push pressure because eventually Aurelia's not gonna do anything against Anivia, against Lulu. He needs to split push, and he did nothing.
And moving forward in this tournament, I actually feel like that is the next step. Can you get a legitimate split push threat, looking once again at Fiora, that can actually break up these Protect comps? Because we've been talking about it. Protect is a legitimate strategy that's existed in, like, forever. Since Vayne, Season 1. So this has been around. Split push has always been the answer to it. Get a really good split pusher. Don't let your top laner that is so important to the composition go to the AD carry and make that juggernaut type of carry. Just keep her on the other side of the map. They had a chance to do that with the Aurelia and just failed in the execution.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the early game, we saw Flash Wolves getting a lot more aggressive. We had wondered if either of these teams were going to find a way. We saw multiple ganks to the mid lane this time around, picking up a couple kills on XPK, as was mentioned. However, beyond those 2 deaths, he didn't die again.
It was a very refreshing thing to see them take the initiative and really punish the lack of dual combat summoners in the mid lane. But then we saw the exact same thing. Niels, being such a star player, has out CS NL in every single matchup. So now NL forces himself to freeze the wave, and then this time around, they learn from the mistakes in all 3 previous games, and they just say, you know what, go middle with Anivia, take the tower quickly, and then just really get the game going by accelerating the gold lead, and it was a good thing to see them at least learn from previous games and put it into play.
It's also something that I've been worried about thinking of Origen. They've always had this playstyle where they make sure to have stronger side lanes because that alleviates pressure from mid. And in this particular game, they have this weaker bot lane matchup because of the Caitlyn, and that allows the support to roam, and XPK is not used to that. During the regular split, they were playing always to this strategy where they had a stronger top lane, a stronger bottom, and XPK was always safe because the pressure came in. That's why it was so uncharacteristic, this particular game from Origen. Like, overall, it's just so weird to me.
I also think you have to give credit to the way that Casa and Sword Art do unpredictably move around the map. They do it very sporadically, and like that 4-man gank on mid lane is what I was looking at. For like 1 second, it looked like Jinx was going to freeze. All of a sudden, 3 summoner spells burn in the mid lane, and they just completely took Peke off the map.
Now, I do want to jump into a replay. 19 minutes into the game, we have a fight in the bot lane, which ends up bringing everybody down there. But interestingly enough, XPK's build, which was different this game than the previous games, has a pretty big effect on this fight.
Yeah, so at this time, he usually would be having a Catalyst or a Tear of the Goddess, both combined at the same time. But this time, he switches it up after dying a lot in lane, thinking, I need to spike a little bit sooner. So he goes with the Grail and the Haunting Guys, which is going to be a lot more damage, specifically around this time. So you can roll the clip, and now a big thing is going to be Stake's teleport is way too far, and there's a miscommunication with the flashes and going in. At this point, Origen is in a really good spot. Okay, get the kills, and then you see it's a 5 versus 3 right now with Stake flanking from the back. And this is already a very won fight from Origen. Once you get the kill on the Caitlyn, she's no longer a threat, especially far away from the tower, and Flash Wolves just have to run. This is literally a 3v5. Like, you just can't win this.
At this point, Stake actually had a way to win this fight. I think that if he had to prioritize with Maple, they could have maybe pulled something together, but the split focus and then Maple getting chunked out was just such a nail in the coffin.
It's like definitely like they were chasing after the Jinx while Anivia with the build that you mentioned, was in the middle of the pack, and they could have just simply focused on Nivea, which was the bigger threat at this point, because Jinx hadn't even finished her IE.
Yeah, and that was a huge uncharacteristic mistake out of Casa and Sorta. You saw that Sorta would have taken Casa into the middle of 3 people. There's only 1 black shield for the triple knock-up. Instead, he tunnels into the brush because he wants to wait for Maple to get there. Obviously, Sorta got a very different message at the start of that fight and flew into his death.
Now, lessons to be learned, though, from this series for Origen. We've talked already about some of their failures to pull the trigger when they have leads and some of their uncharacteristic missteps here and there in terms of handing leads back.
The biggest thing for me was how Shock said, mentioned in the interview, these weren't the cleanest games. And I was really happy to hear Niels' response to that as to if they play like this, will they go further in the tournament? He's like, no. Like, we need to improve a lot. There's a lot of room for us to practice and really refine our play. This is not the best Origen we've seen in the tournament. They had a lot of spectacular games during the group stage, and they plan on at least buckling down and really watching what they did wrong and accelerating the game, playing more to how they want and not being complacent. So I really like about that.
Yeah, I want to see Amazing step up. I know that he's a great jungler. He performed really well towards the end of the split especially, even in group stages. And when he gets the eyes on the other jungler, because he is such a good Elise player, he looks dangerous. In these games, he didn't look dangerous. So I'm looking for Amazing in particular to rebuild some of that synergy with Mithy and become that threat around the map that we're used to seeing out of these European teams in the lane swap.
It's like, for me, it is just going back to the roots. They need to play this style where they were playing around the early game because this is the consistent way of playing. Like in these matches, for example, it gave me flashbacks in the matches against TSM. They kind of rely on the enemy to make mistakes, rely on the enemy not to pressure the right points. And I think that kind of a play style going into the next part of this tournament is not going to work at all.
Well, I want to move on to a certain player that really shined as his team took the next step in the World Championship, and that was Origen's Niels. With a KDA of 7.8 and 83% kill participation across 4 games, he is our player of the series.
Yeah, and as I said, I get to watch the LPL. I get to watch Uzi, Imp, Death, these guys fly around the Rift. Niels had a performance today to completely rival the great AD carries. We had a mentioning of Starhorn Royal Club with Uzi flying around from Yamato Cannon, but this guy was a monster the whole series long.
I mean, there's a reason why he's my first pick in my fantasy draft. He was so outstanding, and the biggest thing was understanding when he can really push the limits of the champion and flash in his AD carries. It's a difficult trait to learn if you're learning that, but we saw him flash, auto, cancel the, get the next auto reset with the ricochet on Saver and chunk out a LeBlanc literally outside of the team fight, flashing in right at the end, knowing that you're gonna get the AoE crit and just blow people out of the water. It was really nice to see an AD carry really be aggressive, because when you get so many resources put into you, when your Lulu is building an Ardent sensor for you, you better play like that.
An item that no one on this desk thinks anyone should build ever, but it was built nonetheless.
It's like I was super happy that even the team, like Origen, realized, yeah, Niels, you're playing like a god, we're playing kind of mediocre, so we just give you everything and just go ham.
Yeah, and, you know, for such a young player, we say it all the time, the attitude after the game, the maturity he shows when he defers to the captain, he's definitely a guy that on and off the Rift is a huge upside for his team, so can't wait to see him play in the future, honestly.
That, to me, is most impressive. His mentality, the way of thinking about the game, his attitude in and out of game, and how he sees the team improving moving forward.
It's an S+.
That is an S+ player right there.
His trinket.
Oh, that's the secret to the algorithm that we didn't know. It's all about how you are mentality-wise. Soaz also stepped up when it mattered, though, and Jay Folksy noticed they tweeted a penta and a backdoor in one game. Origen, please, here's your world's big play of the day.
Here's the battle. Karsa alone in front, absorbing, gets dunked. Soaz is online. Maple's down. He's still going. He doesn't get the third as Azonius comes across. He gets some damage on his stake. He gets the kill. He's on the NL, and it's going to save the game.
You just fall to the wayside throughout the mid-game, and then 30 minutes hit, Darius pentakill. Maple actually got picked off. He wasn't sneaky enough on the LeBlanc. The stun from Peke just to set up Soaz for all of this power. Oh my God.
That new angle on the replay, on top of the fact that it's basketball Darius, makes it so much better. It looks like he's just dribbling around the court and styling on people.
Pretty sweet highlight reel.
Here we go again, you know, Darius pentakill, you know, just mash your buttons. but to be fair, I think this one required more mechanical skill than the one Balls did, because I think pretty much.
He fully
That is-
utilized that whole kit. Like, he got a
Absolutely.
2-person, like, spinny circle thing that gives you a million health.
Spinny circle
like,
thing.
what the heck is going on
I'd
with
like
that champion
to
right now?
formally submit a request that we rename that spell to spinny circle thing that gives you a lot of health. Decimate. Is
Decimate.
Q.
Yes.
All right, there you go.
He's out of control. He's out of control.
He is out of control. We'll see if people can find a way to deal with him. Now, with one quarterfinal match settled, let's take a moment to update the bracket. With their win, Origen will advance to the next round of the tournament in Brussels, where they'll face the winner of tomorrow's best-of-5 set between the LCK's SK Telecom T1 and the LMS's AHQ Esports Club. Looking at that matchup, gentlemen, we've said time and time again that it looks rather one-sided. Favorites of the tournament, SKT up against AHQ. But thoughts on it?
Even Origen is expecting to just play SKT, and to be honest, I would be surprised if they even created preparation against AHQ because of just how impressive SKT has been looking so far. You obviously have to give some credit to AHQ, but you know the chances are slim to say the least.
Yamato?
To be fair, I feel like anyone that would go up against SKT at this point would be in the same shoes that AHQ are. Like, I feel like no opponent in this
terms
tournament,
of public perception going in terms
exactly.
of their status.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And I feel like AHQ, even though, of course, they're the underdog in this particular match, I feel like it is the best matchup we could possibly hope for because AHQ have proven in the past they are willing to put up a fight.
Yeah, that's what I love about AHQ, right? They're going to attack everyone to their strengths and not the other team's strengths. So they're going to get down and dirty. They're going to look to play a little bit of Tom Kench themselves, run on around the map and see what they can get done. The thing about SKT at the moment, though, is that was their weakness at MSI. They didn't like scrappy fights. Against EDG, they proved that they are more than happy to take the scrappy fights. In fact, they whooped their butt at them. So, like, there's just... How much hope do you give HQ once again?
Right, yeah, the three-headed dragon grew a fourth head. They can do everything now. All right, well, pregame coverage begins for that match tomorrow at 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. That's 9 a.m. Pacific, so don't be late. That goes for you three gentlemen as well. Don't be late. Until then, we need to sign off. On behalf of everyone here covering the 2015 World Championship, thank you for joining us. Be sure to stick around, though, because in 15 minutes, Shox, Deficio, and Jat will be here for their take on today's games with another episode of Worlds Tonight.